Most people believe muscle loss after 60 is inevitable, a slow and steady decline you simply have to accept. But what if I told you that this belief is not only false, it's actually blocking your body from doing something it's still fully capable of? You see, researchers at the University of Birmingham found something remarkable. When older adults engaged in resistance training, their muscles grew at the same rate as younger adults, as long as their nutrition and recovery were optimized. In other words, the physiological machinery for muscle growth doesn't disappear with age. It just needs the right signals to wake up again. And one of the most powerful signals we can send, especially after age 60, comes from a natural compound that most people overlook: creatine. Now, creatine is often marketed to young bodybuilders, but in reality, it's one of the most well-studied and effective natural supplements for older adults who want to preserve and even rebuild lean muscle, protect brain health, and regain physical confidence. And here's what's truly fascinating. Creatine doesn't just help your muscles contract better. It also helps your cells recover faster, your brain stay sharper, and your entire energy system function more efficiently. So why does this matter? Because after 60, we're not just talking about vanity. We're talking about mobility, independence, the strength to carry groceries, get off the floor, or travel without fear of falling. The kind of muscle we build now could be the reason we stay active and cognitively sharp well into our 80s and 90s. But let's be clear, no supplement works in isolation. It's about understanding how creatine interacts with your body's systems and how to combine it with the right behaviors, movement, timing, hydration, and more to unlock its full potential. In this episode, we'll break down exactly how creatine works in your body after age 60, why it supports both physical and mental performance, and how to start using it safely and effectively, backed by real neuroscience and physiology. Let's start by busting one of the most damaging myths in health and aging, that after 60, muscle growth is no longer possible. The truth? Your muscles haven't lost the ability to grow. They've simply lost the right signals. What's happening in your body is this: as we age, the biological signals that trigger muscle protein synthesis, like resistance, amino acid availability, and hormonal cues, become less frequent or less intense. But the muscle tissue itself, it still contains the satellite cells, growth receptors, and mitochondrial machinery it needs to grow. It's not that the system is broken, it's just understimulated. A study from the University of Arkansas showed that older adults who performed resistance training just 3 times per week saw comparable gains in muscle size and strength to those in their 30s and 40s. Another study published in Frontiers in Physiology found that aging muscle remains highly responsive to amino acids and mechanical load as long as the dose is high enough and consistent. Think of your muscles like a high-performance engine that's been sitting idle. The components are still functional, but they need the right fuel, a spark, and a little heat to kick back into gear. That spark is what we call anabolic signaling, and it's the key to unlocking muscle growth at any age. So how do we reintroduce those signals? First, through mechanical tension, when you apply resistance. Even just bodyweight squats, resistance bands, or a light dumbbell routine, you create microscopic stress in the muscle fibers. That triggers the release of molecules like IGF-1 and activates the mTOR pathway, your body's primary engine for muscle protein synthesis. Second, through nutritional signaling. You need sufficient amino acids, especially leucine, to tell the body it's time to build. This is where protein timing and quality become essential, and as we'll cover shortly, where creatine plays a supportive role by boosting cellular energy for that growth process. Third, and often overlooked, is neural signaling, the connection between your brain and your muscles. As we age, our neuromuscular communication can weaken, leading to poor muscle activation and slower reaction times. But here's the good news. Just a few weeks of intentional strength training can improve that signaling dramatically. It's not just that you're building muscle, you're retraining your brain to recruit it. So ask yourself this: when was the last time you truly challenged your muscles, even with something as simple as standing from a chair without using your hands? That's not just strength, that's neural precision, and it's trainable at any age. A simple tool to apply is what I call the 3-for-3 protocol. 3 resistance-based movements 3 times per week for at least 3 rounds each. Start with exercises that mimic real-life movement: squats or sit to stand, push-ups or wall presses, and rows using resistance bands or household objects. You're not just building strength, you're reigniting your body's belief that muscle still matters. Here's the deeper truth: your body adapts to what it believes it needs. If you stop sending the signal that strength is required, it will start letting it go. But the moment you reintroduce challenge, even a little, the adaptation begins again. And this is where creatine comes in, which we'll explore next. Because when your muscles want to grow, creatine becomes the compound that fuels them to do it more effectively, more consistently, and with less fatigue. So don't buy the myth that aging equals shrinking. In reality, aging muscles are like a fire that's dimmed, not extinguished. And all it takes is the right spark to bring them back to life. Here's a truth about aging that rarely gets discussed. After 60, muscle energy becomes just as important as muscle mass. And one molecule, creatine, plays a pivotal role in restoring that energy where it matters most. Let's break it down. Every time you stand up from a chair, climb stairs, or carry groceries, your muscles rely on a fast-acting internal fuel system. Now, here's the good news. Creatine monohydrate, when taken consistently, replenishes those depleted stores, giving your muscles the raw material they need to regenerate ATP rapidly. That means better strength, faster recovery between sets or steps, and greater resistance to fatigue. One of the most compelling studies on this was published in the Journal of Gerontology. Older adults supplementing with creatine while engaging in light resistance training gained significantly more muscle mass, leg strength, and functional mobility than those who trained without it. The researchers concluded that creatine amplified the effects of training, not by some magic, but by powering the very system muscles use to function. Here's how to think about it. Creatine is like a high-performance battery backup. When your primary energy stores drop, creatine steps in to recharge them fast. The phosphocreatine system. This system helps replenish ATP, your body's core energy currency, during short, high-effort movements. ATP is what your muscles burn to contract, stabilize, and power through movement. And without enough creatine to help regenerate that ATP, strength begins to fade faster than muscle size itself. So what's happening in your body? As we age, our natural creatine stores decline, particularly in muscle and brain tissue. That means when your body needs to activate fast-twitch muscle fibers, the type most responsible for strength and explosive movements, it often falls short on energy. This doesn't just lead to fatigue. It leads to weaker muscle contractions, slower reaction times, and eventually a decline in coordination and balance. And that keeps your strength output steady, your movement more stable, and your fatigue far lower than it would be otherwise. A simple way to feel the effects: try a short resistance workout, say squats, wall presses, and resistance band rows. Track how many reps you can do without creatine for a week, then begin supplementing with a daily dose. We'll discuss the optimal protocol in part 4. And repeat the same workout the following week. Most people report a noticeable bump in endurance, muscle fullness, and confidence during movement. Have you ever noticed that after a few repetitions, your muscles just seem to give out, not because they're sore, but because they're tired? That's an energy issue, and creatine addresses it directly. Now, before we go further, if this insight is opening your eyes to what's really behind strength loss after 60, consider subscribing to the channel. We break down the neuroscience, physiology, and behavioral science behind performance so you can take back control of your body and brain with real tools, not hype. Because here's what matters most. Creatine doesn't just support strength, It purports independence, the ability to get out of a chair with ease, to stabilize yourself when you trip, to feel steady on your feet. These are all powered by the very energy system that creatine replenishes. It's not about bodybuilding. It's about biology and giving your muscles the support they need to function fully, consistently, and confidently at any age. Now, we'll explore an even more surprising benefit, how creatine enhances brain performance, including memory, focus, and emotional resilience. Because this supplement doesn't stop at the muscles, it fuels your mind too. When people hear the word creatine, they often think of gyms, bodybuilders, or performance athletes. But here's what most don't realize. Your brain uses almost as much energy as your muscles, and creatine powers that energy too. In fact, some of the most exciting research on creatine in the last decade has come not from the world of sports nutrition, but from neuroscience. Let's unpack what's happening. Your brain, despite making up only about 2% of your body weight, consumes roughly 20% of your body's total energy. Every thought you have, every emotion you regulate, every memory you retrieve requires a constant stream of ATP, the very same molecule your muscles rely on. And just like in muscles, your brain relies on creatine to regenerate ATP rapidly when demand spikes, especially during tasks that involve focus, memory, or emotional control. This becomes increasingly important as we age, when both brain energy and cognitive resilience begin to decline. A double-blind, placebo-controlled study published in Psychopharmacology found that older adults who supplemented with creatine experienced significant improvements in working memory and processing speed, especially during mentally fatiguing tasks. Another study from the University of Sydney found that just 5 days of creatine supplementation improved scores on intelligence and reaction time tests in sleep-deprived individuals, a condition that mimics some of the cognitive fatigue that comes with aging. So what's going on? When your brain is running low on energy, which happens more often than you think, especially after 60, creatine acts like an energy buffer. It steps in to quickly replenish ATP in neurons, helping your brain maintain performance under pressure. This matters not only for cognitive tasks like problem solving or remembering where you put your keys, it also helps with emotional regulation. Brain regions like the prefrontal cortex, which govern attention, impulse control, and mood stability, are especially sensitive to energy deficits. And low cellular energy in these areas has been linked to conditions like brain fog, irritability, and even depression. So when you provide your brain with a steady supply of creatine, you're not just fueling sharper thinking, you're creating the conditions for emotional steadiness and psychological resilience. Let me ask you something. Have you noticed how your mental energy dips in the late afternoon? That foggy feeling, the reduced motivation, the trouble concentrating on even simple tasks? It's not just stress or poor sleep. Often it's a matter of cellular fuel. And creatine helps bridge that gap, giving your brain the high-octane energy it needs to function at its best. One powerful protocol to try is this. Take your daily dose of creatine, typically 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate with your first meal of the day. This timing helps align the boost in cellular energy with your natural cortisol rhythm, which peaks in the morning and supports alertness. It's also when your insulin sensitivity is highest, which may help with better absorption. If you engage in focused work, reading, or physical activity early in the day, you'll likely notice improved energy, more mental clarity, and a greater capacity to stay present without the crash that comes from relying on caffeine alone. Remember, this isn't about supercharging your brain in some unnatural way. It's about restoring what time and stress gradually deplete and giving your nervous system the basic molecules it needs to work well. And if you're finding this information valuable, if it's helping you reframe what's possible after 60, feel free to share this video or leave a comment. This channel is about translating the real science into real results. And we grow stronger when we learn together. Up next, we'll get specific. How much creatine should you take? What type is best? Are there side effects to look out for? And how can you integrate it into your daily routine for the biggest benefit, both physically and cognitively? That's next. Now that you understand why creatine is so essential for muscle and brain health after 60, let's turn to the how. Because even the most powerful supplement only works when it's used correctly and consistently. The first question most people ask is, how much creatine should I take daily? Here's what the research shows. The optimal maintenance dose for older adults is between 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate per day. No need to load, no need to cycle, just a steady daily dose. Let's be specific. If you weigh under 150 pounds, 3 grams is often enough. If you're over that, aim closer to 5 grams. The body naturally saturates its creatine stores over 3 to 4 weeks at this level, without needing the aggressive loading phase, 20 grams per day for a week, you may have heard of from bodybuilders. That protocol works, but it's unnecessary for most people, especially if you're focused on longevity, strength maintenance, and cognitive clarity. Now let's talk timing. When is the best time to take creatine? Studies suggest that creatine is best absorbed with food, particularly when that food includes carbohydrates and protein. Why? Because insulin, the hormone that rises after meals, helps shuttle creatine into muscle cells more effectively. So the simplest and most evidence-based protocol is this. Take 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate with your largest meal of the day, ideally breakfast or lunch. This habit also aligns with your body's circadian biology. Morning and early afternoon are when mitochondrial activity and insulin sensitivity are highest, creating the ideal conditions for absorption and utilization. Now, which form of creatine should you use? Here's where marketing can get confusing. There are many designer creatine formulations: creatine ethyl ester, buffered creatine, micronized blends, promising faster absorption or fewer side effects. But when researchers compare them head to head, creatine monohydrate consistently comes out on top. It's the most researched, the most stable, and the most cost-effective. Stick with pure creatine monohydrate, ideally from a reputable company with third-party testing. Now, the big question, is it safe? According to decades of studies, including long-term trials in older adults, creatine is remarkably safe when used as directed. It doesn't damage the kidneys, it doesn't cause dehydration. And while early myths suggested it might raise blood pressure or increase cramping, those claims have been repeatedly debunked. However, there are 2 key things to keep in mind. Hydration matters. Creatine pulls water into your muscle cells. That's a good thing for muscle volume and repair, but it also means you'll need to increase your water intake slightly, ideally an extra glass or 2 per day. Talk to your doctor if you have kidney disease. While creatine hasn't been shown to cause kidney issues, people with advanced renal conditions should always consult their healthcare provider before starting any supplement. A common concern is bloating. Some people experience mild water retention during the first week or 2, especially if they're sensitive or begin with a higher dose. This is usually temporary and not harmful. In fact, the extra water inside muscle cells can help improve cell volume and nutrient transport, leading to better function, not worse. And here's one more tip for real-world results. Consistency is everything. Creatine works by saturating your muscles and brain over time. That means missing a day here or there won't erase your progress, but building the habit into your daily routine is key. Link it to something you already do, your breakfast, your morning tea, or even brushing your teeth to make it automatic. If you're finding this guide helpful and empowering, tap that like button and consider subscribing. We dive deep into science-backed strategies like this every week to help you optimize your body and mind, no matter your age. Next up, we'll explore how creatine works in synergy with resistance training and how combining the 2 creates results that go far beyond what either can do alone. Let's say you start taking creatine daily, 3 to 5 grams with a protein-rich meal, you're hydrating well. Maybe after a few weeks, you notice more energy during your walks, better recall in conversation, or a little more drive to get things done. That's progress. But here's the real key. If you combine creatine with even moderate resistance training, the benefits multiply. Why? Because creatine doesn't work in a vacuum. It acts like a fuel booster, but you still need to start the engine. That engine is physical effort, specifically resistance-based movement that signals your body to grow and adapt. Let's unpack this with a bit of science. When you lift weights, use resistance bands, or even perform controlled body weight movements like squats and push-ups, your muscle fibers experience microscopic damage. That may sound bad, but it's exactly what your body needs. This damage triggers a cascade of repair signals like IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, and mTOR, mammalian target of rapamycin, that tell your body, rebuild and make this muscle stronger than before. Now, what's happening behind the scenes is fascinating. Resistance training increases the density and activity of satellite cells. These are muscle stem cells that activate during repair and regeneration. Creatine, according to studies like the one published in the Journal of Gerontology, actually amplifies this process. It increases satellite cell proliferation and differentiation, especially in older adults. In plain language, creatine plus resistance training doesn't just slow muscle loss, it helps reverse it. A landmark meta-analysis in Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise reviewed over 20 studies on older adults supplementing with creatine while engaging in strength training. The result? Compared to placebo, the creatine groups saw significantly greater gains in lean muscle mass, strength, and power output, especially in large muscle groups like the legs. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you're 68. You've noticed your legs feel weaker climbing stairs. You begin taking creatine daily, but you also commit to doing 3 short strength sessions a week, 20 to 30 minutes. These can be simple body weight squats or chair stands, resistance band rows or light dumbbell curls, wall push-ups, step-ups onto a sturdy platform. This combination sends a loud, clear message to your body. You're still using these muscles. Keep them strong. And that message is heard. Within weeks, you may notice improved balance, stronger steps, better sleep, even a sense of vitality returning, not because of magic, but because your biology is still deeply responsive to effort, especially when fueled correctly. And here's the beauty of this synergy. Creatine improves your output during workouts so you can do more, recover faster, and make progress even if you're starting from a lower baseline. People often ask, what's the best time of day to train? The research shows that late morning to early afternoon may be optimal for strength in older adults, especially when combined with adequate protein and creatine intake. But the best time is the time you'll do it consistently. Let's talk about emotional payoff. Because yes, strength matters for physical independence, but it also profoundly affects your psychological state. When you feel stronger, you think more clearly. You move through the world with confidence. You're less likely to fall, more likely to stand tall. There's even research linking improved leg strength in older adults to enhanced brain volume and memory function. So what you do with your body and how you support it with tools like creatine echoes through your brain, your mood, and your future. If this insight resonates with you, consider subscribing. This channel is your place for grounded, science-backed guidance to help you stay sharp, strong, and centered, especially after 60. Now, we'll pull it all together and explore how creatine becomes a daily act of self-leadership when used intentionally. Muscle growth after 60 isn't just about aesthetics or mobility. It's about something far deeper. Your brain, your psychology, and how you experience life itself. Let's talk about the brain-muscle connection, and not in a metaphorical way, in a very real biological way. Your motor cortex, the part of your brain that controls movement, is constantly engaged when you train your body. Every rep, every stretch, every push or pull sends sensory feedback up the spinal cord and into your brain. That feedback enhances what neuroscientists call sensoromotor integration, the brain's ability to map and control your body in space. This has huge implications. As we age, one of the first things to decline isn't strength, it's coordination and neuromuscular efficiency. That's why some people in their 60s or 70s start noticing missteps, slow reaction times, or feeling off balance. The problem often starts not in the muscles, but in the neural circuits that command them. Here's where resistance training combined with creatine becomes profoundly powerful. A 2021 study in Neuroimage Clinical showed that strength training in older adults not only increased muscle volume, but also enhanced activity in key brain regions involved in motor planning and execution. Even more fascinating, the participants showed improvements in memory and executive function, likely due to the shared networks between motor learning and cognitive processing. And remember creatine, it doesn't just support your muscles, it fuels your neurons too. Your brain consumes about 20% of your body's total energy, and one of the systems it uses to regenerate ATP, the molecule that powers all cellular activity, is the creatine phosphate system. Creatine helps maintain energy stability in high-demand brain regions like the prefrontal cortex, which governs focus, decision-making, and self-regulation, and the hippocampus, critical for memory. In fact, research published in Psychopharmacology found that creatine supplementation improved cognitive performance, particularly working memory and processing speed, in older adults under mental fatigue. So what we're really talking about is this. Muscle growth after 60 isn't just physical, it's neurological, it's psychological, it's identity level. When you lift something heavy and your body responds, it signals your brain to adapt. You become more resilient, more focused, and more confident. You shift your internal narrative from decline to growth. That's not a small thing, because one of the greatest threats to aging well isn't muscle loss, it's learned helplessness. That slow, creeping belief that you can't improve, that your best days are behind you. But when you challenge your body, fuel it with the right tools like creatine, and stay consistent with small, intentional efforts, you prove that belief wrong daily. And there's something deeply empowering about that. You realize strength isn't just a physical capacity. It's a choice, a practice, a message to your future self. I'm not done yet. I'm still building. If you've been following this series and something inside you feels stirred, good. That's your dopaminergic system waking up. It's the part of your brain that motivates action toward meaningful goals. It responds not to pleasure, but to progress. So ask yourself, what would happen if you committed to just 5 grams of creatine a day and 3 short strength sessions a week? Who would you become in 30 days, in 90 days, in a year? The truth is, muscle growth after 60 is absolutely possible, not because of hype, but because of how your biology is designed. You're still adaptive, still plastic, still powerful. You just need the right protocol, the right information. And the belief that growth is not reserved for the young, it's available to anyone who decides to pursue it. Now, we'll recap the science, revisit the tools, and leave you with a clear challenge you can start today. We've covered a lot, and hopefully what's clear now is this. Muscle growth after 60 is not a myth, not a lucky accident, and not reserved for genetically gifted individuals. It's science, it's biology, it's within reach for anyone willing to engage with their body, brain, and behavior intentionally. Let's quickly recap what we now know. We began by looking at the natural decline in muscle mass and function, something known as sarcopenia, and how it's not just a matter of aging, but often of understimulation and undernourishment of both muscle fibers and the nervous system. Then we introduced creatine monohydrate, a natural, well-studied supplement that does more than just help bodybuilders. It supports cellular energy, muscle recovery, and even cognitive resilience. Study after study confirms creatine can help older adults gain lean mass, improve strength, and reduce fatigue, especially when paired with resistance training. We explored how your muscles don't just move your body, they send signals back to your brain. Stimulating growth at 60, 70, or 80 is a way of activating neuroplasticity, keeping your brain sharp, your coordination intact, and your balance more stable. We broke down the protocols, just 3 to 4 short resistance sessions a week. Even using body weight or resistance bands is enough to signal muscle growth. And 5 grams of creatine daily, ideally taken with water, post-meal, is the sweet spot most supported by science. We explored how creatine doesn't act alone. It complements what your body is already wired to do: adapt, grow, recover, and thrive. And perhaps most importantly, we uncovered a deeper truth. This journey isn't just about getting stronger physically. It's about reclaiming agency, proving to yourself that improvement is possible at any age. Because the moment you stop seeing aging as a downhill slope and start seeing it as a new phase of intelligent, intentional growth, your physiology begins to follow that belief. Your hormones shift, your brain chemistry responds, your behavior aligns with vitality. So here's my challenge to you. Try it for 30 days. Start small. Take 5 grams of creatine a day. Commit to 2 or 3 brief strength sessions each week. Track how you feel, how you sleep, how you move, how your confidence shifts. You might be amazed at what begins to change. And if you found this helpful, I'd love to have you grow with this community. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment with one habit you're committing to today, even if it's just taking your first scoop of creatine tomorrow morning. This channel is here to give you the tools, the protocols, and the science to elevate your mind and body, one evidence-based step at a time. You are not fragile. You are not stuck. You are adaptable, resilient, still capable of growth. Your biology is ready. Your next chapter starts now.